I am the marketing manager at Data Conversion Laboratory. I wanted to let you know that we will allow time at the end of the webinar for questions and answers, so please write your questions down in the chat area as they come to mind. If we don't have time to answer them all, we'll make them available on our website. For those of you who are not familiar with DCL, we convert and organize content to create electronic documents, populate databases, publish on the web, and basically get it ready for tomorrow's technology. DCL services help you refine your document conversion strategy, identify document redundancy, extract metadata, and transform legacy and future documents for real needs, today and in the future. Today, we are thrilled to introduce Dr. Joanne Hackles, President and CEO of Contact Services, and Suzanne Meskin, Director of Marketing, Visant Systems. For more than 30 years, Dr. Hackles has addressed audiences internationally on subjects ranging from content management, project management, effective interfaces and information, minimal information products, usability testing, and online and web-based information, to managing the information design and development process. Her workshops are dedicated to enhancing the practices and products that will best promote customer satisfaction. She has authored Information Development, Managing Your Documentation Projects, Portfolio, and People, Content Management for Dynamic Web Delivery, Managing Your Documentation Projects, Standards for Online Communication, and User and Task Analysis for Interface Design. Joanne is a fellow and past president of the International Society for Technical Communication. Through part-time jobs in high school, Suzanne Meskin learns to never work in a food business if you ever intend to eat again. She no longer eats donuts or peppermint patties. After college, she tried financial services and then joined the publishing industry. She's been with the company for 27 years. Suzanne earned a BS in marketing from Penn State University a long time ago, where she also marched and played with the Penn State Blue Band for 4 years. Suzanne and her husband have a feline kid who loves to shred furniture in his spare time. Without further ado, welcome Joanne and Suzanne.
Thank you, Adam. Joanne, would you like to talk about your company, Contact Services? Joanne, is your phone on mute?
Suzanne, is it working now?
There we go. I hear you now.
Okay, thanks. Sorry for the confusion. Okay, hopefully that's clear. I've been taking off the headset. But anyway, I wanted just to introduce Contact a little bit. We have a global team of people working with companies around the world on their information development solutions. We're very much, of course, engaged in content management issues, but we also do a lot of work in identifying user requirements, understanding the user needs, creating better processes to support the changes that are going on in our environment today. So hopefully we will talk about some of those and give you some good ideas in this presentation today.
Okay.
Now, Suzanne's going to talk about her organization, Visant.
Right, as Adam said, I've been with our company for 27 years, and through those 27 years I've seen a lot of changes happen in our company. When I first started with our company, we primarily did composition and pre-press services for the book and journal publishing industry. And then in the 90s, we developed a content management system, specifically component content management. and we created a division called Vasant Systems. And the neat thing was we used our unique perspective from our publishing services background to develop our CCMS. In 2013, we became a member of the TransPerfect family of companies, which is headquartered in New York City. We're a very service-oriented company. I think if you ask any of our customers, they would tell you that. In addition to software, we also provide all the services needed with our in-house content analyst staff to help our customers get up to speed and to maintain our CCMS for the long haul. If you attended our last webinar in June, Joanne and I talked about how to build a business case for a component content management strategy. And one of the key points we made was that you need to sprinkle the pixie dust around the company. So in other words, you need to communicate your vision to everyone who needs to know about it, and then list all the people who are energized about the big opportunity to make it all happen and get the funding that you need to move forward. So I'm sure after that webinar, you all went around your company and sprinkled the pixie dust. And you probably all found your champion that you needed, as we had talked about in the last webinar, that can help you move your initiative forward. I'm sure you all went out and developed your proposal and presented your business case as we instructed, complete with all your ROI numbers needed to convince your management team that your CCM strategy is a good investment in your company. And now you all have your funding to start your implementation for your CCMS, right? Yay! Okay, well, now it's time to make the changes that you need for a successful CCM strategy. There's new standards that you need to learn, like perhaps DITA or S1000D or some other DTD. There's new processes that you need to follow, for example, switching from book-based writing to topic-based writing, perhaps. To make this all happen, there's new tools that you need to learn. Maybe XML editing tools, maybe new publishing tools, of course, component content management system. With all of this change, your coworkers may view the new strategy as this big maze that they need to weave through. And they will react, and some very differently than others. Some of your people will be very excited about this new challenge. Others are patiently waiting to see how it goes. Yet others may be skeptical and hesitant. And some are just perfectly happy with their traditional ways of doing things, and they will resist change at all costs. So it's like herding cats. I was reading an article by a leadership consultant named Dr. Carol Kinsey Goman, and I wanted to just read a little excerpt from what she wrote because I thought it was really interesting about change. And she said the reality is that we all have resistors to change wired within us. Brain analysis technology allows researchers to track the energy of a thought moving through the brain in a similar way as they track blood flowing through the body. And as scientists watch different areas of the brain light up in response to specific thoughts, it shows that we all react basically the same way to change. We try to avoid it. Most of our daily activities, including many of our work habits, are controlled by a specific part of the brain. These habitual repetitive tasks take much less mental energy to perform because they have become hardwired, and we no longer have to give them much conscious thought. The way we've always done it, quote unquote, is mentally comfortable and it feels right. Change jerks us out of this comfort zone by stimulating an energy-intensive section of the brain responsible for insight and impulse control. But this section is also directly linked to the most primitive part of the brain that controls our response to fear. When the brain is overwhelmed with complex and unfamiliar concepts, its fear circuitry gets kicked into high gear. All of us are then subject to experience anxiety, fear, depression, sadness, fatigue, or anger. So, based on her thoughts, it's no wonder that logic and common sense aren't enough for people to sign up for the new CCMS implementation. So you must have the proper process in place to manage the change well. And with the right process, it's really possible to herd the cats. So Joanne is going to talk about this process.
Okay, thank you, Suzanne. I think that's a very good introduction to the program that we recommend for people to follow in really instituting change in their organizations. I think it's really important for everyone to realize that It's not a simple process. As Suzanne has mentioned, and the quote from the author really brings out, there's a lot of hard wiring that is in place that we have to find ways to overcome. I read an interesting article this past year about the analogy between change management and the program, the 10-step program that it's in place with Alcoholics Anonymous. In this case, the author pointed out that it's just as difficult to change an alcoholic into a non-drinker as it is to get people to change any kind of habits. So I looked at the the analogy and said, why don't we think about a 10-step program for change management in our organizations? And I think it's a really interesting and effective way to look at what we might be doing better. And please recognize that we use this program ourselves in our organization as we work with our client companies who are trying to implement new tools in their organizations, to implement DITA-based authoring, topic-based authoring, to move to a minimalist approach, to focus on what users really need in information rather than what has been produced for years. So it's a tried and true program. It's something that we work with all the time and that we hope really can give you some good ideas about what to do in your own, with your own change project. Okay, next slide, first slide, Suzanne. Okay, the first step, right, means getting ready to change. And I think what you really do need to do is look around at your own concerns about change, if you're the change leader, and the changes that your team might have. In fact, one of the practices we've recently inaugurated when we start with a new organization and they have to face a big change, so we actually survey all of the people who will be involved in the change effort to do an assessment of what their concerns are. So this is the kind of survey that we're recognizing that is important to setting the stage and getting our group as a consulting group and the management team to really be aware of what they're facing. In fact, we might get results that indicate that people are really resistant. And you might find that your own concerns about what might happen are going to be important. What if your team members really resist? What if they're not prepared to work in a new way? What if the change effort fails? Will you be blamed for the failure? You know, those are, I think, some of the things going through the managers' thoughts in looking up to change. Help your team explore their concerns. Often we hear from people that they're too busy to make a change. They have too many things to do that they're already set up to do, and they don't have any time to do anything that's new. And I think what you do is to be prepared to respond to these kinds of concerns that are in people's minds about the change that you're about to explore. Okay, next thought. So we get ready, right? And what we have to do, like we learned from the professionals who run Alcoholics Anonymous, we have to help people replace old habits with new ways of doing things that then become habits. And it takes time. It takes time to do that. One of the things that happens at Alcoholics Anonymous apparently is that they serve coffee because they want people to get used to drinking coffee rather than drinking liquor as a way of starting out something, starting a new activity. So consider the old habits that your people find value in doing. In lots of tech pubs organizations, people place a high value on the process of formatting text, of making the results look really good. If you are instituting a process like an XML-based authoring that does away with that formatting, how will people feel about it? When they're no longer going to be able to, make things look precisely the way they want. You're going to have to address that and find new things to replace the old habits. What about the correcting of all those little details, or the pleasure and the satisfaction people get from working independently? Much of the work with the content management means working in collaborative teams. We find that teamwork is becoming more important in developing interactive solutions or responding in social media to the needs of our users. And yet we have people who value and find pride in their independence in working separately. So how are you going to help people overcome that and introduce new ways of working that provide value, or that can be seen as providing value? And you need to help your team members really identify the kinds of things that are going to be most valuable to them going forward. Information architecture, new roles, style sheet design, work in multiple media, things that can be new and challenging in the new environment. The pleasure that comes from finding a new way of creating content that customers really find effective. I'm very excited about some of the people who are going to be presenting next week at our Best Practices Conference about the new ways they have worked with building teams to create solutions-oriented documentation that customers have been asking for, but that everyone's found very hard to do. So a massive kind of change in the way I think about how I create information, but I find value in this new way of doing things because people respond really well to that new value. Okay, next point. Number 3. Provide peer support and pressure. Peer support and pressure. We think about new ways of creating teams and having teamwork be sort of a central focus of a new way of we're changing the way we communicate. So what are the things that you can help people come together, right? When we start new projects, we ask people to create a leadership team, what we call the core team. It's a team of people, a small team of people that will provide direction, communication, and help on this change initiative. Don't feel that as a manager you need to do that change management alone. Think about ways that people can get together to create a new information model for the way their content is going to be structured in the future, or write authoring guidelines for the team to use together. What about process redesign? What are the things that you need to do about workflow that's going to be different? Is there a team that can be focused on new tool selection and the management of those tools? What about translation management? How is that going to be done differently? How can people work together to handle those issues? What about content delivery in multiple medium? What new ways do you have to think about authoring content or displaying content so that it'll work on multiple devices? All of those activities, which I think can be very exciting, very stimulating, help people adjust to and participate in the change endeavor so that they're not feeling that someone else is doing this, excuse me, and just imposing it on me. Okay, point number 4, the next one. Make sure, this is something we said in the last webinar, make sure you have management sponsorship. No matter what, identify a key individual who could be your executive sponsor. On one major project that we worked on for several years, it was the vice president of marketing who was our executive sponsor, who was very engaged in the need to improve the content that their customers. And he had the ear of the corporate level executives, and he could get the funding that no one else thought was possible. He could help the team members know who to communicate with, how to communicate effectively, what messages we're going to get across, how to get those funding sources and build the business case, but also during the change initiative to keep people in the senior management team informed about the efforts that people were making to do things differently, and also just how challenging that was, because it was a huge, enormous change from the way content had been created in their organization before. They were doing things that no one had ever done. If it becomes difficult to navigate, through the middle management rough waters of your peers in the organization, having executive sponsorship at a high enough level, someone above the group, is really going to be effective in helping you deliver the change initiative results that you've promised. Okay, next point. There we go. Encourage collaboration without hierarchy. This is a really interesting issue that comes up in change management. In many cases, we find that senior managers tend to appoint the same group of people to run things that they always use. That they have a confidence in certain key people, and those people get the job of managing change. The problem is that that action, that focus on the same people once again, leads to a lack of confidence among team members. They say, well, it's the same old people doing this. I'm not, my needs, my interests, my capabilities to do a good job, to make this change happen, are really not going to be paid attention to. Look for a way of setting up your teams, but avoiding putting people into those power roles. You want consensus, you don't want dictatorship. We know of a really wonderful case where a person put in charge of managing the content management system was viewed as a dictator by the rest of the organization. It was, do it only my way, or my way or the highway. We don't want anybody else's input to this. And that really put a damper on every other initiative, on people's willingness to take part, to take risks. Somebody who was dictating the way things would go, taking on a power position, had a really negative impact on the project. So be careful about how you put your teams together and where the power structures ends up being. Next slide, Suzanne, because I think we have an answer to this. Identify actively the team members in your organization who have real influence on other people. Now, in the research that's gone on in doing this, what the surprise is to managers is that many of the people that the team members identify as influential leaders within the organization are surprises to the managers. These are people who have the confidence of their coworkers, the trust of their coworkers, and they may not be the people you expect. Maybe it's the plumber or the newest member or the live wire who are the people who really help everyone else be effective. Ask your team members to identify their informal leaders. Do a survey, let people indicate, among these members who are the people you go to. Look for those informal arrangements that suggest who everyone goes to in a leadership position. And those are the people that you need to cultivate and put into key roles in your change initiative. That's going to make a huge difference to the effectiveness of your change initiative. Okay, next one. Constant feedback. You know, we can't say this enough. Everyone wants to know how they're doing. You know, you're changing things. People are learning how to use new tools. They're learning how to use new processes. They're learning to write differently. They're learning to interact with their peers, with their engineering and subject matter experts differently than they have before. What kind of feedback can you get them? And that means that as the change manager, you need to know how things are going. You need to be out there talking to people all the time. What are the successes that people are having? What are the failures that they've experienced? What are the problems that they've encountered? What solutions are really working in the new environment? What's on schedule? You know, it's amazing to me how easy it is to let things get out of touch. You know, to not notice that something is out of whack, that the schedules are behind, or that people are in big trouble and they're not telling you. Be sure that you're testing your own assumptions about where the project should be at any one time, and have a good, you know, schedules in place that says, where should we be on this day, and if we're not, what do we do about it? You know, tackle the problems before they become big ones. So get the feedback. And a lot of times you have to work really hard to get that kind of constant feedback from people on the team, because they're busy, they're doing things, they're trying to do things that are new, and it's a real challenge. Okay, next slide. Well, in part of that constant feedback means that you should be able to find the small breakthroughs, small shifts in practice that indicate someone is working in a new way. We see this, you know, for example, in our minimalism work. You know, we do workshops and work with groups on instituting minimalism practices within their organizations. So to get that started, we put a workshop in place, and during the workshop, we ask people to spend half the workshop time in examining their documents using the minimalist checklist. You know, take a look at a document you bring and identify with your team members what could be improved, what are the opportunities for change in that specific document, and work as a team to identify those things. In the outcome then is a short list of very specific changes that the author or the group of authors intends to make in that document. And the amazing thing is I get emails back from people doing this who say to me, we made that change. You know, it took us a couple of weeks, but we went in and we made that change, and it's made a huge difference. It was only a very small thing to do. In one case, a manager with a team of writers decided to reduce the redundancy in certain areas of a manual so that they were able to eliminate paragraphs that said the same thing on the same page that had kind of gotten out of whack, or instructions that were duplicates. So they were, you know, making these small changes. Well, the small changes started to add up, and people felt, you know, a lot of confidence just doing some small thing. So we've seen this work so well in minimalist training that, you know, it's just amazing how those small gains can help everyone boost confidence and say, gee, I can do that. I can make a difference. People begin to feel successful rather than feeling incompetent in the new environment. Because, you know, so many times when you're suddenly faced with doing something differently, you feel, you know, I used to be good at this, And now it's taking me twice as long to do something that I did before. And now, I'm feeling that I'm no longer as effective a person as I used to be. And you've got to really work hard to get people over those hurdles, right? Like our runner here, jumping over the hurdles, because they can move to a feeling of confidence and new productivity that they don't expect. But you have to help identify those breakthroughs. Okay, next point. Of course, celebrate the small wins. In fact, you've got to create an environment to make small wins happen. When we have teams working on developing a new information model, when they're moving to a DITA solution, for example, we encourage each of the members of the information modeling team to go out and actually experiment with a new topic type. Everybody needs to work on how we're going to structure our task topics in our organization. And we want to document that in the information model. So everyone on the team, here's a task from your existing material. Go out and try it out. And then come back the next week with all the trial runs. And we go through those and people talk about what they've done. And then we select out of that the preferred, the best way. And usually the best solution is a composite of several solutions that people have worked out, because they're working with this new process and new way of writing. Somebody might have a really good way of titling the topic, or someone else may have written a great short description of a task. And it invigorates the discussion of the model. It gets people involved, and we can celebrate, that small win, that success story that people have right at the beginning of a project. People feel appreciated. We encourage them to go on and do the next. The rewards can be small simply by everyone saying, what a great job you did. Or you can have a bigger celebration, and we'll talk about that in the next slide. So yes, you have to reward. You have to reward change. But you also have to realize that in the course of making this change, you are going to have setbacks, and let people know that there will be setbacks. And that having a setback and having something that didn't quite work the way you wanted is not a reason to abandon the change initiative. We found, for example, people very concerned about the appearance of their new XML automatically generated content. It doesn't look exactly like what they had before. And they're really, in a lot of cases, ready to go back to what they knew. What was what they did that they felt was excellent. And as a manager of the change initiative, you've really got to work closely to explain to people, to remind them of the benefits that they're getting from doing things in a new effective way. The setbacks are no reason to abandon the change initiative. They're setbacks, they're not catastrophes. You can find ways to overcome and to reward and to celebrate, and get back to better ways of working. Three things come to mind when I think about this idea of managing an addiction and how it connects. And I got a nice note from Laura Reddy about her responses to Managing Change article that I wrote about this process. And she said the same thing: be innovative, don't be afraid to fail. Sometimes it takes a lot of tries to come to the right solution. And realize that not everyone has to be perfect. That you can be making progress with not having perfection yet at every stage of the process. That the things that you want to have working should work well. And perfection may come later, or maybe not. We rarely get to perfection, but we do get we get great results. So here's the 10-step process. These are the things that I think you can be paying attention to and use as part of that process. And we have an article that you can use that is available on the CIDM website, infomanagementcenter.com, and also on the Comtech website. They can help you through this process. And now, Suzanne, take it over and bring all of this to a close.
Okay, thanks, Joanne. So I just want to wrap this up with some things that you can do to help ease the pain of change. And these are, a lot of these things that I'm going to talk about are things that our clients have done that I've seen work really, really well. Joanne talked a lot about getting your staff involved from day one, and I think that's really critical as well. She talked about having that go-to person who is maybe not the person you necessarily expect, but that go-to person may be someone that definitely needs to be part of the input environment for the feedback cycle. Hold periodic meetings with your writers. That's something I've seen some of our customers do as they're working on the implementation, and it works really well because you can clearly explain the goals and strategies and benefits that not only the organization will see, but that the writers will be able to get value from as well. I've seen one of our clients do a weekly teaser, and this little graphic here is an example of one of them that they did. Now this was back several years ago. This is, I think, 2007 or something. And the team lead just took one small benefit that the writers were going to get out of the new CMS and put it in a weekly newsletter that he sent out. He just emailed out to his writers, and it got them excited. Every week they would see something new come along, but it was just presented to them in these bite-sized chunks so that they could easily digest it. And by the time the system got implemented, they were already familiar with that. You could use social media to do the same thing. But the key is to get the writers involved from the earliest stages so that you can build a sense of ownership with them in the decision-making process rather than just dumping this all on them at the last minute after all the planning's been done. Another thing to do is just to create any kind of aid that you can think of that would help them get involved in the process. For example, you can train the writing team to follow the same guidelines by creating a style guide or using an existing standard writing style for consistent authoring. You can create templates that ensure that all the writers are following the same structure for documentation. As you convert from the book paradigm to the topic method of writing, it will be beneficial if writers are already creating content in a consistent manner so that they can share and reuse each other's content in the content management system. So any kind of templates or checklists that you can come up with would be very helpful. I love this. This was something that one of our customers did to clearly define the new roles and responsibilities that they had developed for their CMS implementation. It's a very simple spreadsheet. At the top, they listed all of the new roles, and down the side, they listed all of the responsibilities. And then within the table body itself, they listed what actual function each of these roles would partake in each responsibility. For example, a project lead has the approval to determine what the deliverables are. So they're responsible for that. Whereas an editor is simply notified of what those deliverables are. So by quickly looking at this chart, everyone can see who's responsible for what. And it's very clear, there's no questions when someone's trying to figure out who do I go to for a specific decision to be made. Training is always key. That's why I have the title Train, Train, Train. You can't train enough. I do have some do's and don'ts here that I think are very important. Provide the right training, and I underlined the word right because there's a lot of different types of training that you need to do in this process. Starting with concepts training, things like what is reuse, what is topic-based writing, get those concepts ingrained in their brain first. Followed by skills training, what is DITA, what is XML, things like that. Of course, that would be followed up with tools training. Your content management system, publishing tools, XML editing tools, all of the training that would be needed to manage those tools. And of course then process training. It's likely that your processes are going to change, so you need to make sure that you include that in the training as well. Make your training engaging so that people remember it and they hold more, they retain more of the information that you're presenting. At our Vassant Users Group meeting several years ago, one of the sessions that I did, and it kind of came clear out of the blue, our users weren't expecting it, was a session that I called Hits or No Hits. And it was a takeoff of that game show that used to be on Deal or No Deal. And what I did was I used that to help train them on some search techniques. And so I would present a scenario to them, and they had to guess whether it was going to result in any hits or no hits in the search. It was a fun way to present it, and everyone had a blast, and people remembered the tips that I had built into it. So anything you can do like that to make it engaging would be very helpful. Providing continuous training is important too. You can't just go and provide initial basic training or some advanced training and be done. You have to keep going on with refresher training, because obviously people won't remember everything. And there's going to be updates as well, so you'll need to do update training. Things not to do: make sure that you don't forget to train. That's really important, because if you forget to train, you're setting your staff up to fail from the beginning. Don't narrow the focus of the training too much. I have a story that just applies to this so much. I think of this story every time I think of this point. We had a usability testing we were doing when we were redesigning our interface, and we went to a customer's site, and we sat with a writer, and we said, okay, show us how you use the system. And in our system, there's a little icon that shows up if there's something wrong with your piece of content. And she said, I love that icon, because when I'm getting ready to publish, I can see if my content is ready or if it's not. And she said, then I sit, and it takes me about 4 hours for each piece of content to figure out what's wrong with it. And I thought, oh my gosh. In her training, they narrowed her training so much that they forgot to train her that there is a command that all you have to do is click on the command, and it tells you exactly what's wrong with that piece of content. So she was spending hours and hours of time trying to figure this out, when in fact the answer was right in front of her nose. So don't narrow that training too much, because you could actually be shooting yourself in the foot. And of course, don't train too soon. If you train before the people get on the system or on any of the tools, then it's likely that they'll forget before they actually get their hands on the tools. So the bottom line, it is a team effort. You need to get everyone involved to get their ideas and their communication, their feedback, and their concerns. So you need to make sure that you listen to those concerns. I think Joanne's 10-step process includes a lot of this information throughout. So I think that's the main point that we want to get across. Just as you're, if you have any questions, you can put them in the questions section now, and as you're doing that, we'll just quickly go over a couple of upcoming events and additional information. We will be at Best Practices, a Joanne's conference coming up next week, also at LavaCon. And we do have a case study webinar coming up in November with Welsh Allen, which is a medical devices firm, on November 5th. We have a CMS starter kit on our website as well that has a lot of good resources for getting started. So let's see, I know Joanne's got some events as well.
Right. Suzanne, I've got, of course, the Best Practices event next week, where our theme is change management. It works out very well, very connected to what we're doing. We have speakers coming from actually around the world to talk about the change initiatives in the organization. So if you are not coming and can come at the last minute, please join us. In November, we'll have the DITA Europe conference in Munich. We just put up the agenda for that conference, so We have all the speakers lined up, and you can go to the infomanagementcenter.com website to find them. We also have a few other webinars coming up. One is developing a new authoring environment for your XML-based authoring. A second part of our metadata series, and then a new program on writing for an audience of machines. This the Internet of everything that you may have heard a lot about. And we have a whole series of workshops scheduled now around the world. A minimalism workshop in September in Belgium, and another in Research Triangle Park in December. 2 agile workshops, one in Canada, one in the U.S., and getting started in Krakow, Poland, which is the first time we've done a workshop in Poland. So we're very, very excited about that coming along. Now we are interested in questions from you guys.
Well, thank you, Joanne and Suzanne. A very informative webinar indeed. Several questions have already been submitted, and the first one is going to be, are there ways to make changes incrementally?
Well, I think that, Suzanne and I are both talking about a process. This is a change process, and that's by nature incremental. You're going to set out a program for, implementing a new content management strategy. You're going to set out a program. That program is likely to take a couple of years to fully implement. And there are things that you need to get started doing. And at each stage of that process, you're going to, find new opportunities that you didn't foresee. We've been working, for example, with an organization that implemented DITA in 2006. So they're 8 years into their implementation. And, we provide new guidance and training to them each year, because they're looking at improving new ways. They want to do new ways of creating their content, new ways of handling some of the problems they faced with DITA 1.0 that are being solved with DITA 1.2 and DITA 1.3. So there's new things coming along all the time. So it definitely is an incremental process. And I think you need to design it as an incremental process as well.
Right. I think, maybe a good first step is start learning XML, because obviously that's the basis for the rest of the process. Once your people start getting into XML, then you can start learning DITA before you venture into a content management system. So, those might be some of the steps, for example, that you could take as incremental steps as well.
Great, thank you. A follow-up question to that one, Suzanne and Joanne, is what cannot be done incrementally?
Suzanne, what comes to mind to you? I'm not. We have the same reaction.
Yeah, I think, like you said, it is a process, and everything is by nature incremental.
Well, there certainly are things like when you're cutting over to your content management system.
Right.
But even with that, lots of groups will implement workflow and process flow later, once they, get everybody working basically in the system.
Right, and you can also incrementally get your content in there. So maybe you start off with a pilot project, which is just a small subset of your content. Work with that until you get all the kinks worked out, and refine your processes before you add more content and more people to the system. Yeah. So even that can be an incremental process as well.
I think I see so many places where not being incremental doesn't work. We know of groups that, working with groups like DCL who do a good job at this, but then just converted everything, dumped it into the content management system, and then realized, oh no, we have to restructure some of this material.
Mm-hmm.
But now it's harder to do than it might have been before.
Okay. Thank you so much. The next question that's come in is, could you list the right training items again?
Oh, yeah, sure. So the items that I listed were to start with concept training, things like reuse and topic-based writing, followed by skills training, your XML or whatever DTD you happen to be using. Tools training would be next. Your publishing tools, your XML editing tools, your content management system, and of course training through your about your new processes that you're going to be implementing, because they likely will change.
Okay, excellent. The next question has come in is, what are the top component content solutions out there in the market? And are any or all of them integratable with SharePoint?
Well, some, of course. Yeah, I think there are a number of systems out there that are good component content management systems, and I think doing a Google search on component content management, most of the good ones come up on the very first page.
I think if you're looking at specifically at a SharePoint solution, you have to really be certain that what you want to do can be accomplished with SharePoint. Because SharePoint is not designed to be a DITA solution, an XML DITA solution, on its own. So I think, really look at that really carefully.
Thank you. Suzanne, this question is for you. Would you be able to repeat the URL to your CMS starter kit?
Oh, yeah. Let me flip back to that slide. There it is at the bottom of that slide. And in the starter kit, there's all kinds of things. What we put in there are checklists that you can use for things like how to manage change with your people, how to manage change with your content, how to build a business plan. There's a whole list of good tools in there that you can use, as well as RFI and RFP templates and an ROI calculator.
You could also, I'd also recommend taking a look, and I'll send this to all of you, looking at the DITA roadmap that we have on the Comtech's site. It's comtech-serv.com. There's a DITA roadmap downloadable, like Suzanne's, that can also give you ideas about the steps to take with a DITA implementation.
Excellent. Thank you. The next question has come in. It's a rather long one, so I'm going to read it. Please let me know if you need me to repeat it. Is, how can you best answer the argument from management that migrating the documentation to CMS takes too long of a time? We want the results tomorrow, meaning that it takes longer now than before with desktop publishing.
So they're talking about length of time to actually publish versus length of time to implement, I'm assuming?
Well, the note says migrating to the documentation to CMS takes too long. Well, Adam, you guys could answer that. Well, there's a good process with DCL that helps you take existing content, if you don't want to change it very much, as a starting point to migrate it to XML into the CMS. Getting it into the CMS is no effort at all once it's in XML. I think Vesant has a bulk import process.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I guess I look at this a little bit differently. And if they're talking about implementation time, I think that they need to weigh the trade-offs of the return they're going to get in the long run versus the time it's going to take to make the change to structured content and content management. Because if you do a proper analysis, you'll find that the ROI far outweighs staying with the way you're doing things now. Yeah. And so it's a matter of, do you want to start now and get the ROI quicker in the long run, or wait and, you know, for a couple of years, and you're just postponing your return for years. So yeah, I think you need to do your homework in that respect and get the numbers versus the timeline in front of them.
Excellent, thank you. The next question that's come in is, what are the benefits of a CCMS that has source DITA natively versus one that doesn't have DITA as a source but can publish to DITA?
Wait, read that one again.
Sure. Let me repeat it again. What are the benefits of a CCMS that has source DITA natively versus one that doesn't have DITA as source but can publish to DITA?
Well, you know, the whole idea of moving, you know, of making the change to structured topic-based authoring. What the DITA standard, DITA is a standard, it's not a product, provides is a platform in which you can do that. You're using structured authoring. You're using a structure that is provided by the tools that implement the standard, and you're authoring in that environment. I mean, what is the point of getting DITA out if you didn't produce it in the first place? Because it allows you to do what with it? You know, if you don't have structured content to begin with, you know, what are you going to get? What is the solution that you're trying to accomplish? So I don't see much. I'm not sure. Maybe I don't understand the question well enough, but. If you want to work in a structured environment, you want to use the standard, the DITA standard, then do it. Do the whole thing. I don't think there are really any shortcuts that make a lot of sense. Okay. Is there any other comment about that?
No, I don't. I agree with what you said. Yeah, I'm not really sure what the purpose is of getting DITA out if you're not working with it in the first place either.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you. The next question is, you are talking about DITA here. How do you feel about other options such as WordPress?
Well, I think we're talking about any kind of structured writing, whether it's DITA or it's any other standard that's out there. You know, there's lots of other standards out there as well. There's S1000D and military standards and DocBook and, you know, any kind of standard that's out there. So I think all of these things that we talked about today apply regardless of which standard you're using. So yeah, we mentioned DITA a lot, but that's, you know, that's one of the most popular standards today. But there are others, and these things that we talked about all apply.
Well, and you know what we really want you to focus on is the issue of managing the change in your organization. No matter what kind of change you're moving to, you know, these are processes. I think that will work, even if the change that you're using is really pretty straightforward.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, Joanne and Suzanne. This will conclude our webinar today. So thank you, everyone, for attending. Today's webinar has been recorded, and you can access it on the webinar archive section of our website at www.dclab.com. Our next webinar is scheduled for tomorrow, Wednesday, September 17th at 1 p.m. Eastern Time, titled Marketing, Monetizing, and Mobilizing eBooks, how content creators can maximize on the potential of digital publishing, presented by Mercy Pilkington, CEO of Author Options. Again, thank you everyone for attending and have a great day.